Welcome to episode 4 of the Ball Don't Lie podcast, where we talk all things NBA basketball. Today I have with me Tejas, Hudson, and David. Today in this episode, we're going to go over some of the news that's been going on around the league, as well as play a little bit of game called Start Bench Cut. If y'all are not familiar with it, we're going to get into it later. Basically, it's going to be scenarios of 3 players at a time. One of them you're going to have to start on your team. One of them you want to be your sixth man, and one of them you're going to want to cut on your team. But we'll get into that later. First off, let's start off with the news. Starting with Mike D'Antoni and Ime Udoka joining the Nets coaching staff. So now we have all 3 main members of the Phoenix Suns 7 seconds or less offense, with Steve Nash, Amari Stoudemire, and Mike D'Antoni on the Nets, which is very, very interesting. And Ime Udoka was a guy that was sought out by a lot of teams this year. The Chicago Bulls were very interested in him before they hired Billy Donovan and etc. So this gives a big boost to their coaching staff, and I think this is a very good hire because you have 2 inexperienced coaches in Steve Nash and Stoudemire, but they have experience behind them in D'Antoni and Udoka. So I think this will help them like very, very much. Hudson, what do you think about this?
Yeah, I think that D'Antoni is a great pickup for them. Just considering how he was a head coach for a team that made it to the second round last year. Although they lost to the Lakers, they ended up winning the finals. But I do think that, for example, let's say Nash isn't able to make it to a game for any type of reason. You have Amari Stoudemire, who's going to catch on to things pretty easily. And then also Mike D'Antoni, who can literally, even as the assistant coach, help Nash and Stoudemire get into things. And I think that they'll be able to help Kyrie and KD nicely. So I basically think that this is a great pickup for them.
Okay, why do I have this feeling that there's so much coaching talent on this team? Like the Nets, think about it right now. Steve Nash, D'Antoni, Stoudemire, plus you have 2 great players in Irving and Durant who can also sometimes, teach the players something. But like, I just have this feeling there's too much. There's no real alpha dog in this. Like, do you really think that Steve Nash is going to be the head coach? D'Antoni coached this man. Like it gives me that type of vibe. I really don't. I'm not saying I don't like it. This is, you can have as many coaches as you want, but I just have this feeling that it's not going to be compatible.
All right, well, it looks like David is having some issues. So we'll just move on to the next bit of news. We're going to talk about Daryl Morey becoming the president of the 76ers. I think this is also a very interesting hire for them. He didn't become the GM. He became the president, just to clarify, because Elton Brand just signed an extension. I think this will bring some stability to their team. The 76ers have been, constant, not underachievers, but like something's been going on with them behind the scenes that's kind of like messed up their runs in the season. And I think Daryl Morey will bring some stability. As we said before in episode 2, where we talked about all the Western Conference teams, I mentioned that Daryl Morey, every year that he was the GM of the Rockets, they made the playoffs. And I know the 76ers were going to make the playoffs regardless of whether Daryl Morey was there or not, but he can still take them to that next level and make them a championship contender, because this team has a lot of talent, but it hasn't really panned out. The only year that they were an actual contender was when Jimmy Butler was traded to them, and they had, Tobias, Jimmy, Ben, Joel, and Redick. But then now losing Jimmy and JJ, they've kind of taken a step back. And Daryl Morey, I think, can help them take a step forward.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly think that obviously when he stepped down from the Rockets, a GM, I should say, everybody was in shock, and we all knew where the Rockets were going with this. They're just trying to get out of a fresh start, firing D'Antoni and Daryl Morey stepping down. But I do think he'll be able to help the 76ers with their basketball operations. I think to me that this could be one of the teams that could be, this is one of the most important teams to make some moves this offseason. With how they did last season and all their expectations, I think that they really need to improve next season. So with their new head coach, with Doc Rivers and Elton Brand being extended as the GM, Daryl Morey now coming in as the president, I think that this free agency or offseason in general could be pretty exciting to watch for this team.
I mean, I think when I first saw this news, I was like, as a Celtics fan, I was like, God, it sucks for us. But Daryl Morey is a great mind of basketball, and Elton Brand really didn't have an idea of what to do with this team when he got Al Horford and paid Tobias that max. I think Daryl Morey will influence Elton Brand's moves this offseason, and it's kind of weird what they have to try and do here. They have to get rid of that Al Horford contract, and they also have to try and maybe ship Tobias Harris and or Ben Simmons or Joel Embiid. Well, I mean, they could keep Ben and Joel if they wanted to and try it over again. But if it doesn't work this season, heads are going to be turning. So I mean, they got to figure it out. But I think Daryl Morey will have an influence, and they'll do something big this offseason, hopefully.
Daryl Morey's also like one of the GMs who's obsessed with shooting threes. So I think he can make Ben Simmons into a shooter. He's gonna somehow like figure out, like, he's gonna get some trainers to like give him some shooting tips, and I feel like he's gonna develop a shot, and he's gonna be scary.
Yeah. And even if he doesn't make Ben Simmons become a shooter, I feel like that was a really good point, because I think he's going to one thing that the 76ers lacked last year was shooting, especially because they lost J.J. Redick in the offseason. So I think he's going to be a key piece in trying to acquire more shooters to their team to complement Ben and Joel. But moving on, we're going to be talking about the Milwaukee Bucks. They're trying to make some moves this offseason, man. They talked to the Pacers about possible trade for Oladipo, the Thunder about a possible trade for Chris Paul, and the Raptors about a possible trade for Kyle Lowry. So they're trying to get that guy that can take the pressure off of Giannis when teams are kind of building a wall in the paint, and a guy that can, be that not like a secondary option. Well, I guess like a secondary option, but like a guy that can just take the pressure off him, basically. And I think these are very good, very ideal players that they can get. Chris Paul, the only thing about Chris Paul is his contract. Same with Lowry. Oladipo is a free agent after this year, so they're going to have to work out all that stuff. But I think as far as like personnel-wise, I think these are probably up there as to like who they can get to take the pressure off Giannis.
Yeah. If I'm correct, I'm pretty sure that the Bucks signed Eric Bledsoe to like a 4-year deal last offseason. So, like you said, they're trying to get Giannis some extra help with not the greatest contracts with CP3 and Kyle Lowry, but you can see that they would be giving up any type of money to get these types of players on the team. But I do think that a trade is possible for Chris Paul. I'm not too sure about Lowry, but if the Raptors do want to get Giannis, letting Kyle Lowry go might be the option. And I think that the Bucks talking to Oladipo, to the Pacers about Oladipo, is great for them, because we've all seen the rumors about Oladipo out of Indiana, either going anywhere, literally anywhere. So I think if they could somehow put a trade together, I think that Oladipo to Milwaukee could help Giannis get the stress off all on his back, and help them get at least past the second round.
As we've mentioned before, if i.e. go check out episode 1 on what we thought of Milwaukee. This is what we expected out of them. They needed someone that was not going to falter in the playoffs. And if you look at all 3 of those players that they tried to get, Oladipo pushed LeBron to 7 games. Chris Paul, he's elite. He took Oklahoma to Game 7 and almost beat Houston. You look at Kyle Lowry, won a championship last year. He's got that, championship mentality. He almost beat the Celtics this year. These are the types of players that they want to surround Giannis with. And they have got to do whatever it takes to get either Chris Paul or Kyle Lowry. I don't care what it takes. If you're a Milwaukee fan, you have got to throw Eric Bledsoe, and I don't care how many picks it takes. You've got to throw all of them to try and get Chris Paul. That way you can keep Giannis in Milwaukee, or else he's just going to walk out the door. And they have got to do whatever it takes to keep him. And I think trading for one of these 2 players, I don't know about Oladipo because they really want to have that. They really want to have a point guard. So, Chris Paul and Kyle Lowry, I can see why. And they have got to try and get one of those 2.
I have a question for what Hudson said. He mentioned that if the Raptors want to get Giannis in free agency, that they should trade Kyle Lowry to the Bucks. But I don't see why they would do that. They are just making the Bucks better. And if they get close to winning a championship, I don't think that Giannis is going to leave to go to the Raptors after that. Can you explain what you meant by saying that?
Basically, I'm not, to me, or personally, I don't know how much the Raptors have in cap space, if they have enough for Lowry's contract and even a max for Giannis. But I'm not sure if they do. If they do, then obviously, by any means, keep Lowry and try to pair them up and win a championship. But if not, then letting Lowry go or putting him in a trade might be the only way to get Giannis on the team and still have enough money. But
Lowry is – sorry, continue.
No, but I was just going to say that I'm not sure how much they have in cap.
Kyle Lowry, they do have enough in cap, but Kyle Lowry is also free agent that year, and I'm certain that he's going to take a pay cut. And he's also signed using bird rights, so meaning that it won't cost them as much in their cap space. So I think I think that Lowry will take a pay cut because he's going to be 36 by the time that comes. 35 by the time that comes. And I think that keeping Lowry will be the best idea for this team. He's the heart and soul of this team. He's a leader. I don't know. I don't think that we should let him go.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Moving on to the next topic. We're going to transition to the Celtics being interested in Rudy Gobert. They said that they were monitoring anything that was going on in free agency. A lot of people might jump on this, and a lot of Celtics fans. I know Tejas is a Celtics fan, so I want to hear what he has to say about this. But a lot of people might think this is a very good trade or a very good idea for them. I actually disagree. I think that Rudy Gobert is a really good player. Don't get me wrong, but he's gonna want a max contract. And I don't know if you're going to be willing to give a max contract to someone that, his skill set, his offensive skill set is very minimal. He is a very good rim protector, but he can get exposed on switches. I honestly think even though Miles Turner isn't a better player than Rudy Gobert, I think he could fit their team better because he has the ability to stretch the floor. So when you have Brown and Tatum slashing to the rim, you're going to need space. That's why you saw Daniel Tice was able to hit the mid-range shots and the occasional three-pointers, but Rudy Gobert doesn't have that in his game, and he's going to want a max contract. And I don't think the Celtics should give the max contract to him because you can find a lot of players for cheap that maybe don't do it as well as Rudy Gobert does, but have the same skill set as he does. Kind of like a Jared Allen type player. But I think that the Celtics, and they would have to give up. I think they'll probably have to give up Hayward, in order to trade for Gobert. and if they want to sign him, it's going to be for the max. So I think they should try to go for a cheaper option and a guy that can provide spacing for them, not just a rim protector.
Of course. I mean, I don't think in the end, I don't think Rudy Gobert is going to be a Celtic, but the Celtics, like I said, I'm pretty sure in episode 1, the Celtics do need a better guy than Daniel Tice if they want to be a championship team. They are a championship contender with all the guys that they have now, especially Tatum and Jaylen Brown and the other guys getting their time and experience in the game. And Tatum is going to be better next year. Jaylen Brown is going to be better next year, as both of them are coming off their best season. But I do think that the Celtics need to have Daniel Tice as a backup to be a championship team to compete with the Lakers. And I don't know if Jared Allen is going to be that guy, because we saw Daniel Tice at the beginning of the season. He wasn't good, but getting more and more experience, he got better and better and was able to be a reliable sender. But I do think Jared Allen could be a nice piece. But again, I think that they may have to have what's the name? I think that they will have to have somebody else take that spot. Like you said, may not be as good as Rudy Gobert, but at least somebody else.
Well, as a Celtics fan, there's one answer to this question. No, we are not trading for Rudy Gobert. And as much as people say he would be the ideal center, I agree with Suhas completely here. He doesn't space the floor, which, and quite honestly, the Celtics don't need a center that spaces the floor. In fact, they already have 4 perimeter players. If they trade Hayward away, they can still insert Smart in, and we see what he can shoot the ball. He's probably one of the more on and off 3-point shooters. But if he gets going, oh boy, it's lights out. But Rudy Gobert, the problem with him is that he won Defensive Player of the Year 2 years ago, which means he's eligible for a Supermax. And I'm pretty sure we talked about this a couple episodes ago. I don't remember. But a Supermax is $250 million. That's $50 million you're going to have to pay him. And you're already going to give Tatum a max extension. You already have Brown's extension. You have Kemba Walker's contract. There's no way you're affording this. You're going to afford it. And they just have to trade. They cannot trade for Rudy Gobert. But I do also want to make this point. I didn't even think about this till today. Robert Williams has been on the bench for the Celtics. He's a second-year player. He's going to be a third-year player coming up. He's got some nice potential. I remember in the playoffs, he had to play the backup center spot because Kanter was such a liability. He was just getting absolutely destroyed on the pick and rolls. So they put in Robert Williams, and he did a very nice job. I know he doesn't, he's not the starting caliber center, but if he grows into that type of player over as the season progresses, he could be a capable center that the Celtics really don't need to trade for anybody. And maybe they could keep Gordon Hayward. I don't know. But that's just another possibility out there. But if they are going to trade for a center, it is not going to be Rudy Gobert. I promise you that.
Hey, what's going on, guys? Hudson here. Sorry for the inconvenience, but usually we would have the start bench cut segment up next. But unfortunately, the whole entire file for that got corrupted. And upcoming next is just going to be the outro, which was formed on a different segment. But sorry that today's episode is just going to be the news. Next episode is going to be a banger. I'm pretty sure it's going to be the mock draft, which is coming this weekend. So stay tuned for that. Again, sorry for this. It's going to be a short episode. This one at least, with just the news. But again, sorry about that. Next episode is going to be the banger mock draft. So we'll see you then, and here's the outro.
All right, that's gonna be all for episode 4 of the Ball Don't Lie podcast. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Let us know down in the comments below what other ideas you'd want us to do. Start bench cut was a very popular choice from a lot of people. and I think that this was a very good way to do it. Next episode, we're probably going to be trying to do a mock draft of this year's draft class, since the draft is coming up pretty soon. So stay tuned for that. We'll probably release the episode about next week, and hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Make sure to leave a like, make sure to subscribe, follow us on Instagram at _BaldOnLive podcast, and we'll see you next week. Peace.
Thank you guys for all the support. Peace.